Hello again, fourth grade, and welcome to lesson 10-4. In this lesson, we're going to focus on solving time problems. So problems that involve using units of time. So either minutes, hours, days, weeks, and so on. Let's go ahead and watch our short video lesson together. And then, as always, we will jump into our notes and our guided practice.
How can you solve problems involving time? Crystal is training for a race. She trains every day for 8 days. How many hours does Crystal train? Find 8 times 3/4. How can you show this on the number line?
Select your answer.
So here we're going to stop and see. If we're doing 8 times 3/4, that means we're making 8 jumps, and each jump is going to be 3/4 at a time. So 8 jumps of 3/4.
You can show 8 times 3/4 by drawing 8 jumps of 3/4 on the number line. Eight times 3/4 equals 24/4, which equals 6. Crystal trains for 6 hours. Crystal spends an equal amount of time sprinting, walking, and jogging. How many minutes does Crystal spend on each activity during her 8 days of training? You can use what you know about time to help solve this problem. 1 hour equals 60 minutes. 6 times 60 minutes equals 360 minutes of training. In 8 days, Crystal spends 360 minutes sprinting, walking, and jogging. Divide to find how many minutes Crystal spends on each activity. Find 360 divided by 3. In 8 days, Crystal spends 120 minutes, or 2 hours, training on each activity.
All right, let's go ahead and get into our notes and guided practice. 10-4, solve time problems. How can you solve problems involving time? So some of the things you need to remember are units of time. So an hour is 60 minutes, half an hour is 30 minutes, a third of an hour is 20 minutes, a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. There are 7 days in a week. There are 24 hours in a day, and so on. So all of these are going to come in handy as you work through these questions, and they are available in your book in case you forget what some of them are. Let's take a look at our first example question. It says the Big Sur International Marathon is a run on the California coast each spring. Sean's mom was the women's overall winner. How much faster was Sean's mother than the winner of the ages 65 to 69 group? So let's stop and think. Sean's mom was the overall winner for the women's group, so that was 2 hours and 50 minutes. The winner for the 65 to 69 group was 3 hours and 58 minutes. So to find the difference, I'm going to subtract 3 hours and 58 minutes minus 2 hours and 50 minutes. 58 minus 50 left me with 8. 3 minus 2 left me with 1. So Sean's mom was 1 hour and 8 minutes faster than the winner in the 65 to 68 age group. Now, there's some things we need to pay attention to when we're subtracting or adding time, especially when it comes to regrouping and borrowing. So if, for example, I added 2 hours and 32 minutes plus 3 hours and 40 minutes. So I'm going to stack and add like I usually do. 32 plus 40 is 72, 2 plus 3 is 5. Now, we know there's 60 minutes in an hour, and since 72 is greater than 60, we're going to rename 60 of those minutes as 1 hour and leave the remaining 12 minutes as minutes. So we're going to take 60 out of here and move it onto this side. So 5 hours plus another 60 minutes is 6 hours. And then those 12 minutes that are left over out of the 72 are going to stay in the minutes section. So remember, you're regrouping groups of 60, which makes when we're measuring between hours and minutes. Now, the same thing applies when you're subtracting time and you need to borrow. we're used to borrowing groups of tens when we're working with just regular numbers. But when we're working with time, we're not borrowing a group of 10 from our next place value. We're borrowing from the hours over to the minutes. We're borrowing a group of 60 minutes at a time because 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. So if I have 5 hours and 8 minutes minus 2 hours and 32 minutes, I'm going to stack them. I can't do 8 minus 32. That doesn't work. So I'm going to need to break one of these hours into minutes. Now I know 1 hour is 60 minutes. So instead of having 5 whole hours, I'll have 4 hours and 60 minutes plus the 8 minutes that I already had here. So this 8 becomes a 68. Now 68 minus 32 will leave me with 36 minutes, and 4 hours minus 2 hours leaves me with 2 hours. So you have to be really careful with the units that you're working with. Pay attention to what units you're using and how you group and regroup them. So let's take a look at another example. If I have 5 weeks and 4 days, and I want to take away 3 weeks and 6 days. Now remember, a week is equal to 7 days. So when we regroup, we're not borrowing a group of 10, we're borrowing a group of 7. So I can't do 4 days minus 6 days. So I have to take one of these weeks and break it apart into 7 days. So that 4 plus the 7 extra days that I borrowed makes 11 days. 11 take away 6 is 5. And now that I have 4 weeks, I can subtract the 3 weeks, and that leaves me with 1 week and 5 days. So pay very close attention to the units that you're using. When you're working with weeks, those are groups of 7 days. When you're working with hours, that's groups of 60 minutes. All right, now let's do something a little bit different. Let's find 7 times 3/4 of an hour. So this is the same multiplication that we've done before. We're going to do the 7 times the 3 over the 4th. So that's 21 over 4. Now we're going to rewrite the improper fraction. So 7 times 3/4 hour will give me 5 and 1/4 hour, because 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 more fourth will give me the 21/4. Next, let's take a look at weeks and days. So our question here is, how many weeks is 420 days? So we're going to divide. So let's drop the 0 for a minute. How many groups of 7 are in 42? I know 6 times 7 is 42. So 60 times 7 will give me 420. And I find out that 420 days is equal to 60 weeks. Now, if I want to be sure, I'm going to do my inverse operation to check. 60 times 7 did give me 420, because 7 times 0 is 0, and 7 times 6 is 42. Let's take a look at our guided practice. Number 1 says, how is adding and subtracting time like adding and subtracting whole numbers? Well, in both situations, you need to regroup or carry over to regroup. So sometimes you need to borrow, sometimes you need to regroup into a larger place value or larger number group that you're using, whether it's tens to hundreds or minutes to hours. You're going to need to do that regrouping and that carrying over and that borrowing. Number 2, how many minutes are in a school day if 7 hours in a school day of 7 hours and 25 minutes? So if your total school day is 7 hours and 25 minutes, we want to figure out how much that is just in minutes. Now, I already have a minutes group, so I'm going to leave that aside. I want to figure out how much the 7 hours is. So I know 1 hour is 60 minutes, so I'm going to do 7 times 60, and then add those 25 minutes that we have. So 7 times 60, I know 7 times 6 is 42. So 7 times 60 is 420. 420 plus 25 gives me 445 minutes in a school day. For number 3, how much is 3 3/4 weeks plus 2 3/4 weeks? So I'm going to use X as my variable. Now I'm going to add the same way I was adding before. I'll add my whole number parts first, my fraction parts, and then rename them as needed. So 3 plus 2 was 5. 2/4 plus 3/4 is 5/4. So 5/4 plus 5 whole is the same thing as saying 5 whole plus 4/4 plus 1/4. So that makes 6 altogether plus 1/4. So X is equal to 6 1/4 week. These are all falling back on the skills that you already have. on how to add fractions and subtract fractions, how to multiply fractions. And it's falling back also on what you already know about units of time. So just make sure you read the directions very carefully. You go through each step one at a time, and you go back and check your work to make sure that it makes sense and that your answer is reasonable. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye-bye.